feel like we'd be doing the like.
I mean, technically, Kate would be over there,
Yeah.
right? So maybe we should be like.
I feel like we should be doing the dance of the dragon dance thing. Isn't that the last move? Don't they like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We should have learned that just for the occasion.
The whole dance.
The whole day.
Avast, me hearties! Pirate Kung Fu Fenris be back from the seven seas.
You can
Yar.
scooch in a bit.
I was trying to make sure that I was relatively under my mic.
The mics will capture you no matter what.
Come on.
In that case.
In that case, cause scooch on in. Hi everyone.
Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Kung Fu Fenris wants us to stop. Why? Why do you want us to stop?
Oh, it's just the 5 C's. Okay. What are you gonna do?
This particular song has been stuck in my head.
Yeah,
It's because it's all we sing when we're together.
that is true.
So we typically replace at least some of the lyrics with Scott.
Yes.
Or
Other things. Yeah.
Winter, Scott, summer, Scott.
There was a whole version where we were doing only PC and NPC names as well. It was pretty good, from what I recall. Hello.
Hi.
Who isn't happy to see NFL?
No,
They go
that's who.
hell.
Oh my god.
God.
Don't like NFL? You go to hell. Doesn't rhyming schemes
It's
off.
yeah, but it's pretty
Need a
good
better meter.
as far as mottos go. Yo, fellow nerds, what's up?
Hey, weirdness. Nice to see you.
All right, it's weirdness.
You subscribe and you can get a voice too. No.
Hi, can I sell you hermetics and perhaps some hermetic accessories?
I don't know, Pook. I'm not sure I want it. Maybe.
Hermetic accessories could mean either like mystical arts or temperature sealing.
Why not both?
All right, so I kind of like it when I'm hermetically sealed because that means that none of my infections can get out.
Right.
Or in.
Oh. Hermetically sealed always makes me think of Han Solo frozen in carbonite. Actually, sorry, very specifically makes me think of Claude
Oh my god.
frozen.
I don't know if I appreciate this comparison.
Super rude. I'm so sorry.
Doof.
This is how you remember me. I was your stalwart companion for years.
And then I got
John, could
amnesia.
you-
We've been over
Could
this.
you do it again? Just one more time.
Do which?
The Claude being frozen. It's so good.
So I gotta knock off the. All right.
Hooray!
Gets me every time. I
Huzzah.
love it so much. Oh my god.
I'm ready for your nonsense.
I'm not a
Welcome.
clown for your amusement.
Now, do not freeze me again. Never, do not come back or we will taunt you. That's
That is Monty Python.
Different
That is,
person,
we're
different
we're
thing.
hopping all
Oh,
over the
now I
place.
see. Now I'm just some kind of Monty Python parody excuse, huh?
no. Can you tell I'm laughing behind this?
Oh, Brom.
No, I can't. Because I don't know if you have humor in your life.
Of course, I have humor. Somewhere in the back of my car.
Yeah, the real joke is that Kyoko settled for you.
God damn it! Pretty harsh.
Hi, folks.
Healing for life, I guess. Anyway,
You may or may not have noticed, as we mentioned
Oh,
at
yeah,
the end
right.
of last session, there is no cave. That's like there is no spoon, except
And
it's
there is no war in
my
Basensei. there is no cake.
Yeah, there is no Kate in
In
Basensei.
Basensei.
whoa. Fair.
And as a result, it's just the two of us, but that's okay. Things will be made clear when we play the recap. You know what? Why don't we just do that right now?
Oh, great, perfect. Bye,
not?
Robo.
Secrets are no fun. Bao, Yeong-Soo, and Don tell Now Oda about the mirror scale. Things are dicey for a minute there, but the bounty hunter says she trusts them. Toot toot, help is on the way! The group boards the submer shark with Jai, and it's not awkward at all. We promise. Bao gives their cousin a reality check on the voyage, and they all take turns watching over an unconscious Kai Ming. Worry not, gentle viewers, she wakes! Kisses from Yeong-Soo and Don perk her right up, and she's chuffed to learn her friends are alive. A few awkward silences and longing looks later, the crew arrives at Fire Fountain City. Kaisuke gives her cousin a warm welcome by arresting Bao and Now for the murder of submer shark guards. Jai suggests taking the others on a tour. Great timing, Jai. Will Bao rot away in prison? Will Yeong-Soo and Hob hate the town red? Will Don and Jai tour each other's temples?
What did you? Not you. What did the announcer mean by "Will Don and Jai tour each other's temples"?
Only the announcer
Fucking
knows. Oh my
nice.
god.
Woo!
Fuck!
Woo! Love that. Oh god, that's demonetized again.
That's a Fall Guys cage, isn't it? I think.
Looks like it. Yeah, but I'm.
Fall help.
Oh help!
Toot toot.
Sablika, as the person who recently caught up, do you agree? Is the summary? Is it fire? Is it working?
Well, Sablika was the one who originally stated it, so
No, I know. That's what I'm just asking.
you agree.
Yeah,
Oh.
asking if the summary is appropriate.
I will show you that at the moment, in terms of experience, you are on the cusp.
Ooh.
I'm cusping.
Oh god.
A case.
Oh. It's not too bad.
However, what we do have here is a situation without Kate. We did write out bow from this particular session, so but we want to keep playing. Yeah, because we could, and Kate's kind of here for a little bit. Is cusping a new thing?
All the cool kids are doing it, Kung Fu Fenris.
There's up to 4 potential XP per player. There's 4 questions that get asked. But yeah, you could. You
Yeah.
absolutely still.
Oh yeah. Even better. We can do it, Liz.
We just need to not fuck it up.
Get all your mini quests in a row and like do your side quests and just check.
Ding 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 ding.
You know?
I know we just arrived here at Fire Fountain City, but I'm going back to Republic City so that I can confront my.
Yeah, exactly.
Bye.
Okay,
Kate.
bye.
We'll do our best.
Yes, we will try.
Kate's gonna do their job. Part of Kate's job is making sure that like everything at the theater is all set properly, that like the actors are in their position. But one really important part of a stage manager's job is in fact safety.
Oh.
But that means that today, because it would have been Kate's job, it falls to me. We have here our safety tools that we use in order to make sure that we play to the maximum of our ability, pushing our limits without going over. You don't have these cards, but you do have options. We'll get to those in a second. But for us, the play card, also known as the green card, means, hey, everything is bon. We are totally fine, even if I might not look it, and you can be sure that if I'm flashing this card, I am enthusiastically consenting to continue. The pause card, or the yellow card, means I need everybody to stop for a second to pay attention to me. I have something important to say. This could be as simple as a warning about approaching a limit, or it could be letting people know at the table how you're feeling and how that might affect the game today. When you put the card down, you can keep playing. Stop card, also known as the red card, means I am no longer okay to keep playing. It means the game will immediately stop. Because we're on stream, we'll probably go to a be right back screen. We will only start playing again once everybody says that they are ready to continue. Now, like I said, you don't have cards. You do have options though. You can always whisper us if you're live on stream at RPGClinic. We'll all see it, or you can whisper one of our mods. Right now we've got Kung Fu Fenris. Our safety wolf is here, ready to hear from you. And of course, you always have the option of turning off the stream, leaving chat. We don't want to see you go, but we do want to see you take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zablika has got like such a great attitude about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, lack of foul will just make
good.
us excited for when Kate's back.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is true. It's always true when someone has to miss.
How did it feel when you were running Blades in the Dark?
Yes.
How did it feel to know that like it couldn't go on without you? The pressure.
There is a lot. Not a lot, but like there is some, right? I think in the sense that like we're all just here to have a good time. I agree with you. If I had been like, guys, I'd rather get a sandwich. I'm not gonna run tonight, and just walked away, that'd be weird.
Sandwiches again.
Well,
Sandwiches seem to be a recurring theme today, among other things, but sandwiches.
lots of the
Sandwiches.
recurring themes,
Sandwiches.
to be clear.
We're ready to start.
I think so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just not as much banter without Kate along. You know how much she talks. Yeah. Like that
What do you think?
real motor mouth.
Love that.
I feel lack of something sometimes more intensely than anything else.
Mhm.
Right. When you're hungry, it's because you're missing food. You're thirsty, you're missing water. When you're playing and you're missing somebody, sometimes you have to just push past that feeling that somebody is gone. Somebody isn't here. And you just have to make the best of it. Obviously, we would prefer to have Kate here, but she's not. Much the same way that obviously I think you'd prefer to have Bao not in jail. But they are. Just gonna have to deal with it.
Well,
Just don't forget that you have a whole city out there for you. A city with its own mysteries and its own particular things about it that might give you clues that will lead you back home. I will remind you today that you can do whatever you like, but I guarantee you that you cannot talk to Bao.
all right.
Bao's not here, and I will not play them. So you're on your own. But not quite on your own. You are getting a chance to start with the tour guide with the most.
Boy, that's a title.
Jai is here. And Jai has just recently offered to give you a tour.
What? We can't just go on a tour while Bao's being carted off to prison. Like, can we see them? Can we?
Is there anything that you think you can accomplish?
We need your assurances that they're going to be okay.
I just got here.
Why aren't you worried?
I'm not certain what it's like in Republic City, but generally when someone is winking while carting someone off, it means an overt description that something is up.
Oh, someone was winking?
You didn't see Kaisuke winking?
No. I was watching my friend getting carted off to jail.
I think Bao is fine.
Based on what you know of your family.
There are deaths to be explained. Deaths of members of my crew. And the last people to see them alive, in fact, the last people to be in their presence were those two. And I think that we can also all agree that it is very likely that those two are the ones responsible for the deaths on board. So yes, they are going to be put on trial. They will be found not guilty by reason of extenuating circumstance, being in fact loyal to the Fire Nation. So no, I'm not worried.
I hope Now is in the same boat.
I don't see why not.
Neither do I.
Feels kind of mean to be just sightseeing while they're locked away, but I don't know what else
Again, is there something else that you could do to help them in this situation?
No.
You weren't present at the time of the...
Maybe they need a character witness.
Yeah, we could speak to their character. We know their characters.
Is there a better witness to their character than Kaisuke, their mentor? Somebody very highly respected here in Fire Fountain City?
No.
I don't mean to be rude or abrupt, but I do think that this is in fact playing directly into Bao's hands. This is what they wanted, or else they would not have come back. Not in this way.
Okay. I guess we'll take the tour.
It's not going to be so terrible as all that.
I've never been outside the Earth Kingdom or the Republic City before. This is all very new to me.
I've never been anywhere outside Republic City that I can remember.
What?
I've read about Fire Fountain City before.
I thought you were the traveled one.
I'm the studied one.
Okay, looks like
The
you're the
spirit world does count as a place, does it?
Oh, I've been.
Yeah,
to
but I
Spirit-
still say pretty centered around Republic City.
Right.
I'd never even traveled across water until we journeyed to Kyoshi Island. But I have read about this place.
Have you now?
Yeah.
I'd
And
like
let me
to
see
es-
if I can remember something.
I'd like to establish a fact.
I would like to use my move Otter Penguins, Unagi, and Hot Springs.
Well, that sounds nice,
She doesn't
Um,
like an otter penguin.
so I'm rolling with Harmony.
especially with some horseradish. I'm kidding.
So
we're not
that's
eating
9. So it's a 7 to 9. So I can ask one question from the following list.
Right. Well, do you need time to think about which question you're going to ask, or have you been waiting for this moment,
all
spending every-
my life.
Every
waking out,
No.
considering what question you would ask should you roll a 9?
I've been thinking about that. But I think I'm gonna choose what's the best local pastime.
The best local pastime.
Yeah.
It used to be that the best local pastime in Fire Fountain City was getting, like, tripping fucking balls. Not kidding.
I know you're not kidding. On what? I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't want to know about the drugs in this universe.
The vapors that actually caused
Oh.
the fire fountain
Right.
in the center of the city did not used to be burned off. Instead, it used to be huffed,
Oh no!
which would cause hallucinogenic trips. Now, the city itself was trying to position this as a tourist attraction, to say that it was a spiritual pathway to enlightenment.
Sure.
And then they built the fountain and people stopped tripping balls. So that's no longer what the city is known for, although you can definitely still find places in the city that purport to help people expand their minds and to connect spiritually. Some of these might even be true, but not necessarily.
Mhm.
What I can tell you though is that there's one of the best pastimes here is that this place is known for its fairgrounds.
Ooh.
Places like tents where you can play games to test your skills, dexterity, strength, alongside various performers and buskers who will spend time. Originally, this only was occasional, and then it became a permanent place in the city.
Okay, thank you. Well,
It's known as the Midway.
Oh shit!
did you know that apparently people who lived here used to actually use the vapors from the factories to have like otherworldly experiences, to have like spiritual awakenings?
No, I didn't know that.
That's true, right? She looks at Jai.
Yes, that's true.
Oh, that doesn't seem like very healthy.
Depends on who you ask.
Sure.
But it hasn't been that way for over 100 years.
Oh, looks like Don's intel's a little out of date.
We don't get out here that much.
It used to be that this city, before it was even called Fire Fountain City, was a place where indeed, yes, people would find the natural gas that was floating up, and yes. But that was when this was North Chungling.
And now there's the Midway, right?
Yes.
A passing tourist mentioned that.
What's a midway?
A fair.
Oh,
You
That's
Your
all right.
fair.
Go ahead.
Oh, that's all I know. That's so fair. It's fairground called the Midway.
We'll start with the center of the city. As you start walking through, a couple of things I should point out here. This is the Fire Nation, and indeed, this is not exactly like Republic City. The houses still have the kind of traditional Fire Nation architecture, which is not the same as what you would see. Now, there are places in, some districts of Republic City where you would see architecture inspired by the Fire Nation. And in fact, the offices in which you attacked certain councilwoman
Whoops.
would have had some of
sure,
this
yeah.
architecture as well. But Fire Fountain City still is very much steeped in tradition, even though it has modernized. So while there are Satomobiles that are going by at breakneck pace, there are modern forms of entertainment and comfort. There's still very much a sense of tradition that is steeped in the city, except for the center. At the center of Fire Fountain City, originally, there used to be a statue of Fire Lord Ozai.
Right.
That is no longer the case. While that statue still exists, it's no longer here at the center of the city. Now, at the center of the city, there are two dragons intertwined, and that's the flame
Oh, interesting.
that expands. Now, as a meta note, I should point out that the dragon's flames are not the similar to the flames that you saw from the Firebending Masters in the third season of the show, because they have a different form of firebending, and this is just straight up, we ignited gas and it is on fire.
Right. And I'll just confirm as well. I should have, probably mentioned or asked before. But we along with Dan and Zhai leading the way, and
And
Yeong-Soo,
Kaiming.
Kaiming is here,
And
and
Ha.
I assume Ha is with us as well. Yeah, I guess that's
Ha is with you, yes. Kaiming is with
great.
you.
Great. I'm sorry.
Ha is essentially now fine.
Oh, good.
No longer evidencing that kind of odd behavior. I will point out, though, that you are no longer in possession of the mirror scale,
Yep,
Correct.
we gave it to Bao.
as
with
Bao was the one holding on to it when they were taken. So
So that'll be interesting. In that case, I'm going to make sure that Ha is, comfortable, but hopefully positioned in such a way as to be able to take in the town as well, to be able to see it, and not just like hidden away somewhere,
what like a hump?
like a hump. Yeah, exactly, on my back, exactly. Yeong-Soo is suitably impressed by the twin dragon fire fountain. Oh, this is the namesake of the city, I guess. It's pretty cool. I mean, we don't have... Well, they didn't have anything like this at home.
Which home?
Yeah, it's a good question, too. I meant home, where I'm from. Where I... maybe we'll go back to one day. I don't know. Andong, in the Earth Kingdom. That's what I meant.
We could visit.
Oh, No, I don't think so. Nothing there right now except disappointment and anger.
And a train.
Yeah. There's also a train. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. What do you think, Don? It's pretty cool.
Very grand.
There is one place that I'm particularly proud of, if you don't mind.
Your tour, right?
So the center of the Fire Fountain City, they're kind of like spokes that sort of lead in towards the fountain, the fire fountain. You're going down a different spoke this time, and then you reach a large building with a lot of windows placed very high up. This is our post office.
Like for mail? For post.
We'll show you. He opens the door, and on the inside you see rows upon rows of roosts. Hawks carrying special harnesses and little tubes on their backs, sit. They look very comfortable. Lots of food. The temperature in the building is kept at a very precise, slightly warmer than the outside temperature. There are people constantly running through, examining each of the hawks, making sure that they're okay. Every once in a while, somebody comes along and slides a rolled up piece of paper and then lets them go. I know that it's ancient, but there's still enough of a cachet to having a hawk deliver your message compared to simply having it go out by wire.
You said you were proud of this place.
I worked here.
Really?
I was here for 5 years. When I was very young, I would volunteer. I was very good at keeping care of the hawks who were not ready to go back out, possibly because they were injured or tired. It was my job to care for them.
It seems like a great place to work.
Fantastic for a child to learn responsibility. And it gave me time to catch up on things like reading. Hawks don't care very much whether you're constantly paying attention to them.
As long as they get fed and have something to do. Birds in particular are can get bored very easily. I've seen it happen.
You have a lot of experience with birds?
Not a lot. I have some. We had a few. Trained is the wrong word, but we had a few at the farm that would keep pests away or scare them off. It was more humane than having one of the kids do it. Let me just say, Jai, you say cachet, and I mean, I had to think about what that meant for a second. But I hear what you're saying. There's something to be said for a traditional way of doing things from time to time. There's a reason things were done in a certain way for as long as anyone can remember. Not all the time. Progress, change can be good. Can. But sometimes we need reminders of where we came from and why.
Why?
Why do we need reminders of where we came from?
Yes.
This life, it's already so easy to find yourself adrift in it, thinking about what your purpose is, what you want to do, who you want to find, who you want to bring into your life and to your family. Without a strong connection to the past, how are you going to find a connection to the future?
There's a difference between having a connection with your past and reliving it, isn't there?
I might just be a simple man, but I find the most...
Stop that.
I turn to face Kaiming.
Why are you always doing that to yourself?
It's not a bad thing. I'm just commenting on...
You said I might just be a simple man. You're not just anything. Tell him.
It's very nice, Kaiming. Thank you. I see people who have accomplished much, you know, who are part of great traditions. It doesn't make me feel small. I just see myself in a certain place. That's all. Like Jai was saying, I see the best way to connect to my past to be living in it, working the way my ancestors did. That's what I see. You're right, I'm not just anything. We're all unique.
I'd say the staff on your back says otherwise.
In a way,
I don't know anyone else who can use a 3-section staff.
You didn't? I lean in close and keep my voice low. You didn't train on Kyoshi Island?
Why would we train with a 3-section staff? We have our war fans, our swords.
thought it was, I don't know, I thought you trained with a...
How
bit of
many
a-
other people have you seen carrying a 3-section staff since you left Republic City?
None?
And how many people in Republic City did you see carrying a 3-section staff?
Also none. That's... I see what you're...
It's a very difficult instrument.
Take it as a compliment, Kaiming. Thank you.
At any rate, you were saying you may not just be a simple man.
But that I feel best way to maintain a connection to one's past is to live it. And then Yeong-Soo like nods seriously and then slugs Kaiming in the shoulder playfully. Oh! Goes flying. Yeah.
Smashes into a wall. The wall spider webs.
Oh no!
All the hawks escape.
The sound of that happening. Brutal. Yeong-Soo.
Do you want to meet one?
Don has moved pretty close to
Don's already there.
to one. She hasn't like reached out to touch any of them, but she is moving quite close. Oh, I could?
Of course. Here. He walks forward and he puts 2 fingers out and lets one of the smaller hawks just hop up. He unbuckles the little chain and then... Okay, put your fingers out. Now, it's okay. Just sudden movements. It's going to feel very heavy and it will pinch just a little bit. And then just lets... The hawk is heavy, not terribly heavy, and is looking anywhere but your eyes. Just like, what? I don't care. What's over here? Who cares?
Apathetic bird. Love it.
How are you? Where did you fly this week?
I'm afraid that would be confidential. One of the things that always amazed me about working here is that there's still a very intense need for privacy. Not everybody is allowed to know where the hawks go, only the one who sends the message and their superiors. But even then, records aren't kept. Not very well, anyway. I've heard rumors that they keep very, very extensive records, but if they were, I never had access to them.
I bet wherever you went, they were very happy to see you.
Sometimes you can tell. It's from their breath. Messenger hawks have a distasteful need to eat when they shouldn't. They will steal sometimes from restaurants or from garbages. And, well, sometimes you can tell whether they've been visiting the Northern Water Tribe, maybe, or the
Were you eating sea
Stick
prunes?
Oasis.
Sea prunes stew? Is that what you were doing?
Oh. Oh.
I got a whiff of whatever that was. To think that this little one has flown all over the place.
no one has been probably more places than any of us.
Not more than me. Thank you.
Attaches the chain back.
I mean, we obviously walked in here unhassled. Does there seem to be any sort of like deference being made to Jai by employees, people who are here? Does there seem to be a sense that he's, I mean, I would assume he's well respected, but I'm curious.
Definitely looks like it.
Yeah.
People aren't necessarily... I mean, in much the same way that if you were a civilian and you saw somebody who was a high-ranking member of the military, you wouldn't necessarily stop and salute. That would be inappropriate. But there's definitely a birth given.
And probably not out of fear.
No.
Okay.
No, nobody is looking at him and expressing
Being like,
fear.
oh, okay, great.
Definitely not. Maybe you.
Maybe.
I'm not kidding. You are armed.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Oh yeah, they'd be afraid of you, not you.
Right. I was like, I'm not afraid of Shy. Like, why would I be afraid of Shy? Yeah.
Yeah.
He
You
can
are
kill you.
armed and openly so.
Mm-hmm.
Not that people are like, ah.
Oh God.
You know, it wouldn't be the equivalent of seeing somebody walk down a street holding a bazooka. But there's definitely kind of like they're clocking it and then be like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's a thing. All right, whatever. Because most people don't carry weapons.
Right.
But it isn't illegal here.
Also good.
Why'd you stop working here?
Had to enter the military academy.
Of course.
And that took up all your time, I imagine.
Very much so. There wasn't a lot of time for much of anything. Friends, activities.
Other studies.
I tried when I could. The road was long and grueling, and even though I may have benefited from my family name, that means that they were all the harder.
Do you like it?
Do I like what?
Being a general.
I'm not sure if I can answer that.
Pretty simple question.
It's what I've always been.
Doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have feelings about it.
Do you like being from the Earth Kingdom?
Yeah.
Why?
That's a harder question to answer. It's home. It feels like a place that I should be from.
Why is the Earth Kingdom a better place to be from than the Fire Nation or the Water Tribes?
I have nothing to compare it to, I don't know.
I have nothing to compare with not being a general at this time.
What's in my heart, Shy? That's all I can tell you. What's in yours?
The opposite. Don knows.
Yeong-Soo kind of glances to Kai Ming to be like, are you clocking this too? He doesn't say that, but he's looking to be like, are you seeing this?
Kai Ming is like, birds!
Sweet summer child. What am I gonna do with you? I thought I was the... Oh boy, I thought I was that guy.
Oh my god.
Incredible. Bird! The birds! Okay. Oh, she does.
Secrets of your heart are safe with me.
Keep your secrets then, that's fine.
I'm proud of being a general, and at the same time, I recognize that my position is to maintain peace, not make war. How is it that I am in charge of so much that can do so much damage, and in doing so, prevent that from ever taking place?
I find it hard to consider what's happened, especially in the last few years. Ambition. Ambition used to only get someone so far. You could have the ambition of being the leader of your local village. Perhaps the ambition to one day be Fire Lord. I don't know how things work here. But then the larger the world got, the more it became easy to have the ambition of having more and more, right? More power, more territory, more military might. And now it's easy for someone's ambition to take them to very dark places.
We don't have to go to a dark place. We could go to the Midway. I haven't been since I was a child.
Do they have food there?
I'd say that that's a fair bet.
Okay. Like a really fair bet, because I'm pretty hungry and we could stop on the way. If you're not sure.
If you like, we could go to the most famous restaurant here.
Oh,
But it may not compare.
Most famous restaurant may not think
I
of
think
it.
maybe a lot of our money was lost when the ship sank.
I know mine was.
So we may want to
Stay
be
away.
frugal.
Yeah.
I don't think that money will be a problem when you're here.
You don't have to. You don't have to worry about us.
We're
If you're
used to fending
diving for scraps,
ourselves.
right? Fending for ourselves. Yeah, what she said.
Why?
Fending for ourselves?
Why would you not take advantage of offer given?
Because we wouldn't want to impose. You probably have very important general duties to get back to.
I've only just made port. I offered to give you a tour. Why is it that you're... Oh. You're right. We'll leave you be. He nods. I will hope to see you when I see you.
Hang on. And Yeong-Soo will take a step forward. We're not asking to just put this away. Look, and then he lowers his voice and takes another step closer. I don't want to speak for anybody else here. I don't want to be in anyone's debt. That's all. You can understand that.
That you weren't guests of the Fire Nation, that you weren't responsible for making sure that our embassy was saved, that our ambassadors were saved. The embassy may not have been saved.
Definitely not.
To root out corruption in our own ranks. Perhaps it is the Fire Nation that does not wish to be in debt.
I hadn't considered it like that.
I didn't think you had.
Unless you do have something to attend to, I would very much would appreciate a trip to the Midway.
I don't think that I'm in the habit of offering things I'm not willing to give.
There's the quickest glance at Don and then back. Just the eyes. Just
Don is crimson and looking very intently at a hawk.
Hey, you met Fire Fountain City.
They're very cute.
They are.
Would you ever think about having one?
I don't think it would be happy in my room.
Well, I don't know. I think your room can be a happy place. But you could have a lot of fun there.
Don starts breathing very heavily.
Don't they like fly around? Why would you have to...
I'm gonna start walking towards Midway. Midway sounds great.
I'm really happy in my room.
I'm gonna start walking that direction.
I was currently reaching out for a hawk.
Oh,
boy.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Hawk's like, I'll fuck you up.
Whoa. What? No. Hey. No. It's a really hard lesson to learn, and I don't like it, but you can't always have everything you want in life. Oh god.
Where Yeong-Soo just like bursts into tears.
Into song, actually.
Right in the center.
Always get what you want. Yeah, he stands atop the fiery dragon.
All the post office employees start looking at each other. One's like, "You gotta go."
Man, you gotta get out of here.
He's really bringing down the vibe.
Okay, employees, quick vibe check. Okay, I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah.
Don's walking towards them.
Okay.
The direction she assumes is the Midway.
So where is this place anyway? It's got to be on like the outskirts of town, right? Like if it's a fair.
Oh no, it's quite close to the center of town, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why wouldn't it be? You would want to attract as many people as you could.
Sure. I just thought if you're. Well, I don't know. When I've seen traveling fairs, they usually set up outside because they need a lot of space or something. You make it sound like it's a part of Fire Fountain City and their culture now. Maybe it is.
Of course, it's part of the culture. Doesn't Republic City have its own culture?
Sure.
Don't you have things like pro bending arenas and parks and
Yeah. Is there pro bending here?
maybe.
Okay. Keeping my eyes peeled.
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I'm not that big on pro bending.
A little gasp from Yeong-Soo. Oh. I would have thought, because there's sort of tactics involved in this sort of
I can't decide if I'm close enough to overhear this conversation or not. You two are walking, right?
Well, yeah, we're walking out of the post office. I think you could, sure. I think you should just decide if you
Yeah,
want.
I'm a little ways ahead, but Don hears that and goes, "You don't like pro bending?
I've never been.
That's how we all became friends."
Mhm.
Over pro bending?
Well, among
sort of.
other things.
Yeah, we met, and then
And
like
then-
when we realized that the three of us liked pro bending,
There
we
was some work
went
and-
to a match together.
as well. Another work. But we also did a bit, yeah. Honestly, if I could be on a team with these two,
It's
we
really
would be
exciting.
unstoppable.
I think we'd be really good.
I agree. I think we'd be really
I
good.
think we'd be really good.
Sorry.
But you're not a bender.
No, that's why I can't be on a team with them.
You can be on a team.
You should have a team. A non-bending, pro-bending team.
We wouldn't be able to attack. We would just get knocked off every time. We wouldn't.
I think we could make this work.
You could be a coach.
I wouldn't knock you off that hard.
I'd like to see you try.
Some people like getting knocked off.
God. Into the drink?
Sure.
I guess. I guess. I mean.
You do at some point manage to make it to the midway.
Yay!
Ooh, that's not.
It was so ominous.
That's a little too ominous there. Hold on.
That's where I want to go.
Sablika is wondering,
I'm trying to remember
what did you establish?
Well, this is the thing. I'm trying to remember what we
I
established.
thought in
in
the
the game.
prologue we established that the three of us had been, like, that's sort of how we
entirely
bonded as
possible.
friends, but maybe now I'm thinking of something else.
It's possible to have seen a pro bending match without having attended a pro bending match.
Oh, that's nice too. I like that. Sablika, I'm going to establish, and I'm going to
There are
write it down.
movers.
That's true. There's movers of them. That'd be pretty cool. I'm going to establish right now as a fact that Yeong-Soo has been with these two, but never with Kai Ming.
Right.
Obviously.
Because that's what you decided. You said kind of
We're gonna
you and
go
I
to a
are gonna
pro
go
betting
to a
match, yeah.
match, so
But
that
I'm
kind
gonna
of works.
write that down. But thank you.
There we go. The Midway has a very old-timey carnival atmosphere still. Stalls have been set up, and largely the games are mechanical. They don't rely on things like electricity. They're just more like wind-ups or possibly using very preliminary forms of firebending in order to make them operate. But, you have your standard, like you have an air rifle place where people can try to pop targets in order to win a prize. There's like bag tosses, and some of them are obviously official. Some of them, there's a few people who have set up on like the outskirts that are running games that they don't have a full booth, or the booths seem suspiciously able to collapse very quickly.
Nice.
And they seem tolerated to a certain degree. They're offering higher prizes, and obviously there seems to be they're more difficult to accomplish, or perhaps impossible. Who knows? Depends. How much of a rube do you think your character is?
Probably a pretty big one. I have some. I think Yeong-Soo has some street smarts, but not street smarts. I don't think he's ever been in a position where he's had to deal with people consistently try to trick him.
But what's the difference between having street smarts and then also being a rube?
It's a good question. I think part of having wits and street smarts is being able to tell when someone's trying to take advantage of you. But that's not the whole picture, right? It's not all of it. Like there's some intuition maybe, but I don't think he's ever had to, at least for me, I don't think he's ever had to really avoid being taken advantage of on a big scale.
Much the same for Dawn. I think she's, apart from her altercations with the hot rock triads, she's kind of just willing to see the best in people.
Oh, that's nice.
Which doesn't always work.
They also have carnival games like, like the big old mallets that you have to slam down on something in order to ring a bell, and they have archery in one place. They also have one that seems kind of interesting. This one seems to be specifically for firebenders, where they have moving targets, but you have to fire through a sheet that is placed in front of you with a hole, so you can't, in fact, you have to be able to aim very precisely. But yeah,
Pretty cool.
a lot of games to be had. And the smell of food. Very, very bad for you food. Everything here is either fried or overly hot flaked or both. Salt everywhere in order to encourage you to drink the latest popular drinks here, of which they have one which they call Limano.
Limano?
Limano.
Excellent. Cactus juice, obviously.
It is the
The
quenchiest.
quenchiest. Yeong-Soo turns with big eyes towards Shai. I will be playing games. But first... Thanks, Pramster. But first, I need to find the most meat that has been fried that I can. I hear it's something that you can get at places like this.
Here, I'll take a look with you.
Boo! And then Yeong-Soo's like, boo! He's not off like a shot, but he's gonna...
Leaving Kaiming with...
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling really badly about Bao, aren't you? They'll be okay.
Yeah, I know. They will be. You don't have to worry either. Just in case you were worried, too.
No.
Okay.
Hey, are you okay?
I'm just feeling like Jai is doing this maybe because he was ordered to, he was told to, he's doing this out of a sense of responsibility, and I just kind of feel like we might be taking up his day right now. I'm sure there's other things that he would rather be doing, so it just feels a little rude to
You like him, don't you?
I like the part of him that he's let me see.
The big part.
And she
Big-
blushes
big
more
part of it?
at that
Big
part.
part.
I realize how that sounded. I just, yeah, I like him.
What about Yeong-Soo? He's nice. Strong.
You're the one who just the other day was saying that you thought that one of us were cute and the others weren't.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Which one of us is cute?
Damn it,
in your
Kai-Ming.
opinion, Kai-Ming?
I don't remember.
Maybe
what
we
you're
can
talking about.
maybe there's a fair game here where we can turn tables.
Do you think they have a turntable?
We could look. Do you think? No.
You hear a massive gong. And you can see that there is a temple that's off to the side of the midway, where somebody wearing long Fire Nation red robes has smashed the gong with a mallet. Looks older, a beard that stretches, right down. The headdress is one that you recognize as one that would denote a certain rank in any kind of spiritual order. Typically, spiritual orders don't let you wear ornate headpieces unless you are,
Up
super.
there. Yeah. Good point.
He takes a deep breath and he sips from his limino that he's carrying before sitting down on the just outside the temple on a stoop, and watches as kids and various other kids at heart start running down through the midway, including more than a few teenagers who are very anxious to show off for their potential partners.
Kaiming, I want to go talk to him.
Okay.
Do you want to come with me?
Is this the sort of thing that you want somebody to come with you?
I leave it to you. You can. I think this is supposed to be a day where we're just supposed to relax. I know I'm not doing a great job of that right now, but I.
Because of the parts of Jai that you've not seen.
I shouldn't have said that. You can just forget I said that.
Is there any part of Jai you haven't seen?
Just,
What about Yeong-Soo?
there was something that sometimes people say words and, in hindsight, they kind of wish that they could sort of pluck those words out of the air.
Are you
and
interested
stomp
in
them
Yeong-Soo?
with a, I'm not interested. No. Are you?
Am I what?
Answer me.
Am
Oh my god!
I going to come with you to
Bite.
this?
If you want to.
No.
Great.
See you when you're out.
I'll see you then. Thank you for being upfront about your wants and needs. And she scampers off.
But I didn't even say. Never mind. So, as he hands you a fried, what will it be? A fried turkey duck hunk.
I imagine it's been blasted with fire on the sides, kind of like not shish kebab, you know what I mean? Shawarma. It's like kind of blasted on all
Sure.
sides by heat. That's what I imagine.
Sure, it's
Nice.
been shaved off and placed inside a nice wrap. Pita.
It is halfway into Yeong-Soo's mouth already. Oh, sure. So, I mean, this is really good. Hot, spicy. It's like, there's like,
How
flavor.
well do you think Yeong-Soo handles his spice?
That's a good question. I
I feel
think
like he might be pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah?
I think he's got a natural tolerance to it, but not a built tolerance, if that makes sense. He hasn't had a lot.
So it's not like he can eat the equivalent of like a ghost pepper and be like, I feel nothing.
Yeah, he's not gonna sit down and he's not gonna sit down on hot wings and be like, I'm going to the end, boys. That's not what he's gonna do.
Okay, actually, a digression here.
Okay.
Do
I
you
love
think,
this digression.
how far into hot wings do you think you could get?
I've watched one episode. Oh, hi, Ellie Spot. If I wanted to enjoy myself, 2. The second one.
No. I'm saying how far could you go?
If I wanted to push myself,
Do you think you could make it to the end?
no, absolutely not. I've had my friend bought a couple of the bottles of hot sauce from the show. I can't remember what levels they were now. Unfortunately, it was 2 and 6. I want to say something like that.
Right.
I had a drop of the hotter one, and it ruined my night.
You're not supposed to consume it straight.
No, I know, but like, I mean, no, but I mean, I also put it on something, but still, like, it ruined my night, John.
What about you, Elizabeth?
I-
think you could...
I don't think I could make it very far.
I wonder whether I'd just be stubborn as hell. And
Yeah, just be
and
like,
I would,
"We
and
can
I
do
would
this,
tough
come
it
on."
out, and then at the end, I'd be like, there have been so many mistakes made, but that I
don't wanna be
would,
here.
I would have too much pride wrapped up in like.
But that's the
No,
thing,
that-
like when it comes to piercings, tattoos, like that's something where you're like, yeah, just like, you know,
Shove it in.
let it
But there's
let
a
it go.
point.
But then when it comes to actively eating spicy foods, like if you're not used to it, your mouth just like physically can't ingest
Yeah,
anymore.
it's not nice.
It's not your mouth, it's your throat.
Oh.
Where I found it, because I was once at a live action role playing event.
A LARP.
One that I was running. Yes, a LARP. And it was Pranksgiving.
Oh.
Now, the thing is, most people didn't do anything for Pranksgiving, but somebody decided to, and I was in a pool, and somebody handed me a hot dog to eat, and I ate it, not realizing that they had been marinating this hot dog in the hottest barbecue sauce that they could possibly find to give it to
So
me. Now,
bad.
I will say, right here and right now, this is not a good prank to play on people because you don't know whether or not you can cause them severe problems. There are, in fact, certain people who should not eat terribly spicy food. And it was just kind of like, whoa. Yeah, hot ones, hot wings.
Hot ones. And then I would die afterwards.
The
Perfect.
toilet becomes a
Goodness.
nuclear waste
Oh
site.
my god.
Thanks.
Had to entomb
So
there.
I think I could. I think I could. I
Okay.
just don't think I'd enjoy it at the end.
Mm.
Who knows? Maybe I'll try one day. Maybe I won't. Probably not.
Probably not.
So,
So good.
did Don say anything about why you left so suddenly?
Why we left Yoshi Island?
About why I didn't go with you?
Yeong-Soo is indeed, there's a few little beads of sweat forming at the top of his head. But just a little one. Yeah. I mean, I guess. We had to get out of there pretty fast. What are you asking exactly, Jai?
I'm just curious as to how she feels about things. We
Well,
went out on a date before you left.
Yeah.
And then it was a great night.
Well, I think she was pretty pissed you didn't wave us goodbye.
I couldn't.
And I'm gonna just keep checking in with you about how much I'm revealing about your PC.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. I will check it. I will.
But also, you could be lying.
That's true. That's true.
You know, you
I could still lie.
You could be also just be wrong.
It's also a good point, actually. Yeah, it's a good point.
There's so many options.
Actually,
She's pissed at me, huh?
well,
This is rough. I think
we're gonna fight.
A little better. Yeah, I gotta. on
hey, Jai! I'm gonna hear it from here. Woo.
It's
Um,
a voice coming from Sweden.
yeah, I hear a Swede.
yeah. Well, she was. I don't know if she still is. Wait. I should go ask her.
She's busy at the moment, and we're eating.
I look down. Is Jai also eating?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
he's ordered like the
It's not
exact
one of those
thing that you have.
we.
No. He's ordered the same that you have, and he is enjoying it with surprising gusto.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of gusto happening here too.
All over that gusto.
Oh gosh, so good.
Gusting.
Okay.
Gusted
Makes
makes me feel
gusta.
good.
Oh god. Nice. I like fun.
I do enjoy having multiple uses for my work. Coming soon on Clinic Minutes.
Oh god, click minutes. Why don't you I mean, she can't be busy all the time. Didn't we just take a big trip together? You should ask her. Like how she feels. I feel like worst case scenario, she hates you and she'll just tell you that. Or you'll get the sense of it.
Worst case scenario is that she hates me, and yet at the same time, she and I will not be able to be apart.
Ooh, yeah, that would be bad. Seems like something you could manage, though. You're a general, right? You could command the situation.
Yes, I'm certain that they say how to deal with spurned dates in general school.
Oh, you spurned her,
Well, you're the one who said that I spurned her.
didn't you?
I couldn't go with you. I couldn't abandon my unit.
And Yeong-Soo leans in and like cups a hand over his mouth
Unit.
and freezes mid-movement. looks down at Ha. Did you just say? What did you just say? Okay. Looks back. Does Dawn know that the only reason you chose not to come with us is because of your duty?
What other reason could there have been?
Maybe she thought you didn't like her. Or that you didn't see a future for the two of you.
I'm not in the habit of going on dates with people I don't like. Are you?
No, but you could go on a date.
That seems like a awful thing to do to somebody.
I
To
agree.
take them out on a date when you don't like them.
Maybe.
Dunn doesn't need my charity or my pity.
No, of course not.
Dunn is a magnificent person.
That's nice. That's a nice thing to say.
Accomplished. She travels the spirit world to seek out knowledge, to give aid and succor to those who arrive at her temple seeking knowledge that could plot the course of a life or even a nation.
Yeong-Soo turns towards Ha. I think our general might like a certain speaker. What? What did you say? What the? Didn't think that would be your first word. Hey, looks away again from Ha.
Young.
Yeah, young.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's that sweet again.
Who's that yelling from a distance? I don't know, Jai. I just think maybe she's worried that something went wrong, or that you had made a decision without talking to her. Look, why are you asking me anyway?
Why not?
Because
We're not friends?
no, I don't think I'd like to be better friends.
Don't you discuss these sorts of things? Isn't that how you become better friends with someone?
Yeah, you discuss these sorts of things.
The only other way that I know of to make friends is to actively suffer in training with them.
Ah,
I suppose suffering and training is something that you're familiar with. We could go and blast our quads.
as much as that does sound awesome, and I will consider it momentarily, I still have to beat you in that. And Yeong-Soo points at the big mallet and bell thing. A challenge, General Jai.
I see. I will
A friendly
see
challenge.
your challenge.
Perhaps a friendly wager then.
With all the money that you have.
No money. Just a more friendly wager.
Ah,
Something that a friend might do.
I see.
Okay. You'll have to name your terms.
A kindlings wager?
What is a kindling?
It's the equivalent of bragging rights.
I was thinking something more like, if I win, you have to talk to Don about your feelings.
And if I win, you have to talk with Kai Ming?
Look down at Yeong-Soo looks down at Ha. Sky Bison. You got me good. You got me good, Shine. What are my feelings towards Sky? You know what? That doesn't matter because I'm not going to lose, so I won't have to talk to her about it.
So you
Incredible.
rock up to this.
Yeah, I shove the rest of my wrap in my mouth and chew it really like aggressively. And
You know what? Shai does the same. Trying to swallow faster than you. Oh, God. Oh, there's this positive masculinity.
I don't know.
Best.
I think we're role models.
I've seen Ted Lasso.
Oh my
I
god.
think we're good role models. Yeong-Soo marches up towards the. I'm sure there's a name for that kind of strength game. I just don't know what it is.
Isn't it like the mallet of strength or some shit?
It would at a certain carnival is. I'm sure it would be called the Test Your Might or whatever.
It's called a high striker,
Ooh.
also known as a strength tester or strongman game.
Okay.
We'll call it a high striker.
I like High Striker. Should have been writing notes this whole time.
Oh no.
Oh boy. Anyway, Shai and.
Don't worry, we'll take care of it in the rewatch party.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yes.
We should just go to Kate and tell her, like, it's your turn to do the recap.
Oh my god.
We'll do it for you one word at a time. Yong.
Ah.
Fuck. You're already fucked.
Unit.
Unit. Thanks, Yeong-Soo. Or, rather. Good afternoon. My friend and I would like to test our might.
So
He announces?
the woman behind the high striker, who's got the mallet, she's balancing it in front of herself and sort of leaning on it. She is huge.
Okay.
We're talking muscles that could define nation
Generation.
states.
Love that.
Takes one look down at you. I see. Little men think he can make bell go ring.
Now, Yeong-Soo's confidence drops.
Definitely not little.
Significantly.
Also, you are about her height.
Oh, okay. She's just like.
She's just sort of like, when I say look down, she's figuratively not little.
Okay. But there's still like a certain
Test your might.
there's still a lot of musculature happening, which is like I think Yeong-Soo falters at this moment, just like kind of
Little man wants to promise his boyfriend he can hit ding at top.
it's a challenge,
I see.
and if I win, he has to do something that he doesn't want to do.
And if he wins, you have to.
Do something I don't want to do. Yeah.
I see. Whoever gets to be bottom tonight, yes?
Yeong-Soo blink. Like, what are you even talking about?
It can get cold on Fire Fountain City nights.
That's not what I heard.
It definitely does not
Does
get
not.
cold.
Yeah. Yeong-Soo leans in. What are you talking about?
Just play the thing.
Okay. Oh. Of course. Where are my manners? Status first. Age before beauty. I don't know. Whatever. Do you want to go first, Shai?
Jai lifts the thing. Now, the thing is, firebenders are not built necessarily for strength. They're built for speed, right? Like, there is a lot of strength. They're wiry, but they're not built for, like, overwhelming strength. The other thing is, a high striker game isn't really about strength so much as it is about precision, about being able to lift a heavy thing, deliver it with enough speed, but in a very specific location, in a very specific way. So, he lifts it, and he slams it down, and the little thing goes up, and it's just underneath the little red zone before the bell, but it stops there and then falls back down. I see. Proudest member of Fire Nation Army cannot ring bell. Proudest member of Fire Nation Army, perhaps ring your bell later?
I don't.
If you win,
Maybe.
will you win?
Yeah. I'm gonna win.
Alright, let us see.
Yeong-Soo takes the mallet, tests its weight.
Mhm.
It's not a weapon that he's super familiar with, but he has weapons training.
He's used to hefting hay.
Yeah.
Big ol' hay
I think
bales.
he's strong.
I
and he's
don't.
well-
At least, but I'm not sure why you're bringing up my short.
But Yeong-Soo can tell that the goal of this is, I mean, as you said, to deliver it with a certain amount of precision, which is something he would be good at.
Yep. All right, go for it.
What would you like me to roll? I actually don't know how this
You are
would
going
fall
to be
here.
relying on your skills and
Yeah,
training
that
here,
makes
but I
sense to me.
am going to say that you are going to take a. No. You can just straight up roll your skills and training. On a
Shit,
7 to
7,
9,
yeah.
you're going to tie.
Oh. I'm so confident too. And I was so confident. Uh-oh. I saw one of the die before I saw the other. Oh man. That is rough. Can I get some help from my Oh, I rolled a 5.
You rolled just straight 5.
Tragic.
You still have 0 focus?
Of course.
Oh no.
It's Yeong-Soo's weakness. Of course. Have you met my
Why
characters?
did you just try to push your luck?
Because you took me to roll my skills and training. I don't know. Again, double or nothing.
Double admitting my feelings?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeong-Soo looks around for some inspiration. What else? I'll prepare you tea for the next week. Ugh.
No, you'll have to admit your feelings to both Kaiming and to now.
What do you deal?
Very well, and if you win,
You have to talk to Don. And you have to get on the same page with your cousin about where you see them in the future.
that's not something I can easily promise.
I understand.
Whatever they decide is up to them, and whatever I decide, it wouldn't feel right if I was only supporting them simply because of a bet.
I wouldn't want you to support them just because of a bet. You do.
So it said you have to let Hap put this in.
Okay.
I'll let you think on it.
It's something else I can make him do.
This is assuming you win.
I will not. We know this. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Guaranteed, actually.
When you get close, the temple smells of delicate floral notes and just a hint of cinnamon in the air.
She follows any appropriate protocol, like at the door, if there's other footwear that she should be changing into, or barefoot. Like she.
Well, your best way to see
all
is what this priest type person is doing. It's just sitting outside.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Interrupt me.
You were having a moment of quiet contemplation.
There isn't a moment of quiet contemplation out here. If you'll look, you'll see that there is plenty of amusements going on.
Would it be too much of an imposition if I sat with you?
No. It isn't every day that I have someone just choose to join me.
She sits quietly next to him.
Are you alright?
I missed this.
You're not from around here.
No, I grew up in the Temple of the Order of Passage in Republic City. Temple life is all I've known, and I was speaking to someone recently about silence. And
Silence.
silence. I realized I miss a temple silence.
Well, then this is hardly for the place for us to sit. Come on inside.
Oh, it's all right. Just being close is. I would like to go inside, if that's all right.
Yes, just come with me. He stands up. He offers a hand. It's definitely old, delicate.
She takes the hand, but doesn't put much of her weight on it.
And he walks inside. He's definitely not infirm. So his strides are slow but steady, precise. But when he comes inside, first of all, it's much cooler in here. It's been built to make sure that there's good air circulation, but it's out of the sun and away from the not necessarily oppressive heat, but definitely present heat of the fountain as it's constantly going off. Inside the temple, there are hundreds and hundreds of unlit candles, all circling, some against the wall, some on tables, some large, some small. And in the center, there's a small grate set into the floor that's surrounded by imagery of dragons and flame. But it isn't a very large temple. There might be room for an office, and maybe above might be a sleeping area, but this isn't nearly as large or as grand as the Order of Passage's location in the public city.
Mm-hmm. This look of peace kind of settles on her face.
None of the candles are lit, by the way. The only light that's allowed in here are from the windows that are a bit higher up that allow some of the light from the sun to stream down in crepuscular rays.
Welcome to RPGClinic. We use words like crepuscular. I love it.
May I ask when the candles are lit? Is it part of a ritual or ceremony?
Candles are lit when they need to be. There's a certain school of thought that I've been trying to teach young firebenders here. Sometimes all they can do is light the room, when in fact what they need is to create shadows, contrast, so that they can see that the world is not all only bright or dark, but that there are an interplay between the two.
They have trouble seeing the dark, the shadows,
The dark is easy to see. He steps over and he pulls a big, giant pull cord. As he does, shutters fall, and they make they definitely make a startling kind of like a whap as they all fall into place, plunging inside now into darkness. The dark is always there. The trick is to know that it is not a simple binary of whether the dark is here or not. Depending. And then you hear a very gentle and one candle, a very small one, lights. And it's enough to cast some light into the room, but most is still in shadow. One side of this old man's face is now illuminated, barely. I mean, one candle is not a lot of light. One lumen.
She steps a little bit closer to the candle that's lit.
So as you step closer to the candle, of course, you become the obscuring factor, meaning that then the man is cast in deeper and deeper shadow.
So the students have to decide how to use their light, and how to use themselves as the obscuring factor.
In a way. The problem is that you'll see some firebenders do this, and he puts his hand out, and then just a spray of fire goes out, and 20 of the candles light. Now the room has a sharp shadow, because now there's quite a bit of light, but only from one side of the room.
I've heard that exercises in precision are important when one is learning firebending.
It is unfortunately still not taught that way necessarily. Precision is the key towards mastering certain parts of firebending. Lightning bending, for instance. But it can be quite difficult when one is given a power that can get out of control. Some settle for a certain amount of precision. It's seen as enough.
But what if someone was having difficulty unlocking more precision to their firebending? And what if you wanted to help them? What if you tried something like helping them find an anchor so that the force and breath of their power didn't carry them away? Is there anything else that you would recommend?
He takes a deep breath in, and as he does so, most of the candles go out. Just the one that he lit beforehand stays up. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is to simply encourage the journey. You are quite a lovely young person, but I get the impression that you are not a firebender.
I'm not. I've just met a few.
That doesn't mean you can't understand. One is very... It is very tempting to say that it's impossible for someone to understand how one feels because you have not walked in their shoes. But I don't wear shoes. I haven't walked in anyone's, and yet I understand. Struggle is a universal concept. The important thing to understand is that it is all relative. The depth of your suffering is based on your own experience, yes, but to compare it to someone else's is different. It is impossible in a way, because what you may suffer may not be the same as what someone else does, and in much the same way what a firebender must control. They speak of responsibility, of care, of this daunting weight that's placed on their shoulders, that they control such destructive power. But I control destructive power with a thought, with a word. You do. Perhaps with your intelligence. Perhaps with your beauty. And yet you can change a mind. And a mind is already something very dangerous. So, the question is, why do you want to teach someone precision? Is it a lack of precision in your own life?
I've never struggled with precision. I'm an earthbender, so I think when I try to...
Is that earth? He looks to a pouch. I imagine that you still carry sand with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah. I speak of anchors because that is, for me, the root of my bending.
Yes.
Being able to ground myself in the ground, in the sand, so that even when it shifts, I know exactly where I am. I imagine it's hard for firebenders because you have to be the power and the grounding simultaneously.
There is no need to treat firebenders with such delicacy.
I'm just trying to understand and be compassionate.
there's an exercise that I have taught. He walks over, still only one candle lit. He pulls out a small box, 5 candles by 5 candles. Places it on a small table. And then, using his hands, he creates various symbols in the box. An X, circle, the 4 corners. Going through each one slowly, but then speeding up. Almost as if then to create a blink, numbers going up and then down again, creating an animation of a ball bouncing.
It's true that each shape does lend itself to the one before, and when they all work together like that, it does flow.
Life flows. Firebending is life, but so is earthbending. The very ground upon which we walk, the sand that you mentioned, it is the platform upon which we stand. It's the divider between the sea and the sky. All bending is life.
Do many firebending schools teach that exercise?
No, just old Mason.
Mason?
Mazen.
I'm very pleased to meet you, Mason. I'm Don. What?
You I've heard of.
In a good way.
You're under arrest.
He looks around and then
Seriously.
with a very careful spread of his fingers, he lights now one candle each in sort of like a circumference, so that now there's at least equal light coming from all sides, just not lots of it. You are one Shitong's chosen.
One of them, yeah.
And yet, there are things you have not been told.
Things like what?
You still walk as a woman. You still speak as a human. You still act as one who has not been to the library.
No one has. No human has in many years. Am I mistaken?
No, you are not. And yet,
It's not my time yet.
tell me about this time and about how it isn't yours yet.
I'm fulfilling my seeker duties in Republic City.
What duties are those that bring you here to Fire Fountain City?
Well, this was more of a
A pleasure cruise?
Yes, you could say that. I've been learning, I've been training, I've been understanding the different lands that I'll eventually visit, but I mean one day the library will reveal itself. And
Is that what you believe? That waiting is your best option?
no, I want to find the library myself. I do.
Then why
recently-
don't you go? Are there compelling reasons for you to stay? It is against your order to simply abandon it, to seek the library. Your order has been very clear. The library will be returned to us, not we will take it back.
I haven't been given orders to do so. And if I find it, it means there's no more hiding.
Hiding from what? You know what we're hiding from?
Right.
Break.
Oh.
Folks,
Who me?
I will say though, Liz, you are no longer troubled. You have sought guidance from a mentor or powerful figure. So that clears.
What a mentor to seek guidance from,
Conditions.
too. Thank you, John.
We're going to take a quick break. In doing so, we hope that you don't mind the fact that we're going to run some ads because we have to. And then if you're subscribed, you won't. So you get to be here and you can ask some questions or have people watch Scott and me talk about stuff.
We're in red pants.
See you soon.
True. Welcome back to John and Scott's somewhat fancy corner. Did we ever establish? I feel like we established different kinds of corners for different people when they were STing, and anyway, can't remember now.
Mason absolutely sounds like a bit of a radical firebender teacher. We'll see if we get into that.
Look, I wish I knew a bit more about the Avatar universe. It feels to me like Fire Nation must have undergone some pretty hefty upheavals in the last, let's say, generation or so. Moving from living under autocracy to, well, okay, hang on, no, that's...
There is still a Fire Lord.
There's still an autocracy. Okay, but moving from a...
I'll point out that the only democracy that really exists is in the Earth Kingdom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, now, yes, that's
Now.
true.
Republic City is not a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. Actually, no, it is.
Hang on,
There's
yeah, I
a
don't remember
president.
how that works, yeah.
There's a president.
But yeah, I sure did, Ellie Spot. That does sound like me, doesn't it? No, but I guess the Fire Nation, just speaking of radical Fire Nation teachers, I feel like there was a time under Fire Lord Ozai that like there would have been, you know, a way of doing things, and to go against the grain would have meant exile, death, whatever, right? And now maybe there's a bit more room for progressive thought or different modes of thinking or interaction with the outside world. It's just cool. Just cool. That's all.
I kind of want to suggest
Mm-hmm.
that I will eat hot wings if we ever end up doing an event where we need like an event. That other people would have to come up with whatever questions if they wanted to copy the interview thing, but I would do it
Damn.
on stream. I would
It's-
try.
So
It would have to be the end of the stream though.
yes, it would be the last thing we do, and then you could hit the button when you were done, so everyone would know.
That stream ends when John can't eat a hotter wing.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I'm with Concept Generous, honestly, but yeah, I think
Because I do like the reason why
format is
Hot
great.
Ones is an interesting format is because it's basically saying that you have to answer questions, but you're answering questions under duress.
yeah, exactly.
So that's, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be Hot Wings, but the idea of answering questions under duress kind of is fun.
I find the guy a good interviewer anyway, but like you're right, it has to do with the intense nature of what they're doing, of what they're sharing together. You know, it's kind of cool.
Oh, I guess technically, yeah, we can't necessarily do it because the other person wouldn't be like. Point is that he is also eating wings.
Someone had cauliflower bites on one episode. That
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that.
Oh!
Just talking
Yes,
about
the other person
would
would have
not
to.
want to.
Oh, yes. Someone would have to agree to do it with you. All right, BRB.
But why? Oh God.
Yeah. It's just the baby's gotten to the phone again.
Unfortunately, I seem to have lost the ability to call up featured.chat, which kind of annoys me. Let me see if I can open a different browser and see if I can make it work, because it kind of sucks. Let's try this. I like how now we're debating Greek philosophy. No, I think feature chat may be down. Because I tried doing this also last session and it just didn't work. But also, oh, there hasn't been a tweet from this person in a very long time. Yeah, no, we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. It's something interesting about that. I am all here for philosophy time on stream. No, thanks. I don't think I've actually touched it. I think I probably should. Here we go. Can't leave dead air, folks.
Dar we go.
I remember reading a book called Radio Fifth Grade
Sounds familiar.
by a Canadian author named Gordon Corman.
Ooh.
Responsible also for the Bruno and Boots books, alongside such classics as Losing Joe's Place, Son of Interflux. But in Radio Fifth Grade, the whole point was that there were these kids who had a radio show, and one of the kids was like super hardcore into radio and was adamant that the worst thing in the whole world was dead air. The concept that
Oh yeah.
because then people would just change the channel. You couldn't have nothing play on a radio station. So there was like a disaster that happens at the end of the book, and it means that like during the radio show, nobody's saying anything, and the reason like how they get out of the disaster is because he sort of snaps out of it and recognizes that like I gotta say something because otherwise we have dead air.
Whoa.
I
Radio Fifth Grade. Does that book sound familiar to you? Did you ever read that? Yeah. It sounded familiar to me, and I was wondering,
although I spoke
Very
with my,
sketchy.
I'm not going to change the subject, but just that reminds me of, I spoke with my father today, who was doing the sound for the church service that he was attending. They live stream their services now because of, there were
great.
pandemic restrictions for so long. They just decided to continue that rather than record them for posterity, or rather they record what was streamed. All this to say, there was a bassoonist who came in to do a solo, and my father told me, he was like, apparently I made a mistake. After the service, they told me that the mic wasn't on, so there was just like 3 minutes of
Oh no.
dead air. Or like, I guess being picked up by like some distant mic somewhere, just like...
Oh god, and the bassoon too. I know how depressing that can sound when not
Incredible.
properly, Oh my god.
Just something about a very distant bassoon is very funny to me.
Sure, I can bend sand to my will, but have you ever tried dealing with bassoons?
Ooh. You really had to. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You know what? We're not going to go there.
It's good.
Be back.
And if you win,
Well, General,
I'm getting one later, Kung Fu Fenris.
Oh, damn. Well, since I don't know if there's any other people that you have complicated romantic feelings towards, checks for a response before continuing. I'm going to suggest that you have to carry me around this midway.
You want me, a decorated general of the Fire Nation army, to carry you around a carnival?
And speak to Don about your feelings, yes. If I would.
Very well. Picks up the mallet,
Fuck.
smashes it back down.
Yep.
It rises up exactly to where it was before, and then back down again.
Cheers.
I see you want him to be bottom even in public.
Excuse me. It's not like that.
No, I don't know. You are the one who wants to be carried around like some kind of prize, trophy husband.
There are worse things. He's quite a catch. I've heard.
He's not so bad.
You have your eye on someone? Yeong-Soo kind of glances around like, oh, maybe there's another carny here that this person might like.
Swing the hammer, big boy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeong-Soo takes a deep breath. Just checking something really quick. Yeah, okay. Takes a deep breath, centers himself, and will attempt once more to hit that bell with the hammer. I don't have anything fancy that I can do really here. I would like to point out for the folks who are keeping track at home, if I made a case to push my luck, my passion is higher, but I'm also guilty, which applies a penalty to my pushing my luck.
How much?
That's the amount that my passion is, Liz.
Oh,
Plus,
Blast.
also, something bad would happen.
Yeah, so it feels
If you push your luck, it always costs.
so. But I will, in that case, rely on
On
myself.
a 7 to 9, you'll tie. On the 10, 11, or 12, you're going to win.
I mean, I don't want to know what a tie might mean. Here we go. I rolled exactly the same. I rolled a 5. I rolled a 2 and a 3.
good grief.
Good grief indeed.
Oh, he tried. I appreciate
It's alright. Next time you'll win bet. But if you want to make bet with me, I could show you how it's done. She picks up the hammer with one hand, just curves it in an arc, slams it down, and the bell sounds out over the carnival. You have a lot of practice, and I'm not some wuss boy like you.
Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to show me up by ringing the bell?
No. I want you to treat me with some respect. There's an edge, I think, in Yeong-Soo's voice at this. He's maybe a little maybe he's a little raw at
A little
losing twice.
respect. A little respect for a person who's making same bets as teenagers? It was all in good fun. It's alright. He's cute. He's from Earth Kingdom, no? Yo, Steph. Take the staff. Take the staff. Go on.
Yeong-Soo withdraws the 3-section staff.
Now, ignore hammer. Make bell ring.
With a very practiced hand, Yeong-Soo will unscrew the sections of the staff
What the hell?
and and will sort of essentially
it.
little respect. Sorry, that's good weirdness. It's a well practiced move of essentially spinning the staff in one section of it, spinning it in his hand behind him so that it comes out over his shoulder and strikes very precisely at the bell, at the place where you
He
hit.
just stands up and dings the bell.
Fuck. Yeah, that'd be great.
You just ruined my big trick.
Oh,
It is what
no.
It's alright. It's fine. Let's see if he actually manages to make this work. Go ahead, roll. But they'll give you +1 forward for this.
Thank you. +1 forward?
Yes.
I got a 5.
Why did you roll with my dice? You should have rolled with my dice. Oh
Just
my god.
legitimately
come on.
ridiculous. This is the weapon symbol on my official Avatar Legends dice. I think
You're
I'm gonna-
adorable. I'm taking you home. You say you have to tell feelings of these 2 other people?
yeah.
Why don't you say what feelings you have for me? Come,
Ye-
I'll take you out for noodle.
He looks at Jai and kind of shrugs like, I think I'm being taken out for noodles.
You're the one who has to confess his feelings to 2 other women.
Well,
You want to do that right after going on another date?
well, I looks back at this strong woman.
It's nice. I think I could maybe not break you.
Do you date? That's what this?
I don't call it date.
Oh,
We call it fun
Noodles?
times in
Oh.
Earth Kingdom.
In?
I don't mind getting a little dirty.
Huh. Yeong-Soo is... I'm not sure, actually, how Yeong-Soo is in this moment. He kind of looks back to Jai. Are you gonna be okay here for a bit? I just want to see a bit
I
more.
grew up here. I think I'll be fine.
I just think someone who's a part of the Midway might be able to give me a more fully rounded experience of the Fire Fountain City Midway.
You look like Noodle Boy. Come on.
I do like noodles. Actually.
She grabs the vest
Whoa!
and just starts pulling him along. As she leaves, funnily enough, like instantly, there's another guy who shows up, who he is equally as huge, and he takes up. All right, mate. You want to hit the high strike, eh?
Yay!
Best attraction.
I like this.
Incredible.
Yeong-Soo's introducing Han.
Don't forget our bet.
I won't. I don't think I'd be able to. Actually, I might forget
You will
everything.
not be forgetting anything about today.
Really?
So, tell me about where you grew up in Earth Kingdom.
Good. I'm just kidding. Who's your daddy? I don't know.
Show some
Yeah. Okay.
towards you.
Starts
It
eating.
is in fact one of the oldest restaurants in the entire world is located here.
Oh.
Yep.
Wow.
Do we know what it's called?
It is called, because it's actually written here, the Coral Urchin Noodle Shop.
I like this. I should just start a new page here. Oh, wow. Really good. Exactly what I needed today. Noodles, company, and to win a bet. That's what I needed today. That's okay. I didn't win one. That's fine. Yeong-Soo will immediately start spilling his guts about his home village of Andong, what he used to do with his family, how the sun fucking shines in the morning there. He's immediately going to start just like blah, 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 over the noodles, everything. And then eventually be like, so what do? Do you run the High Striker every day, or?
It is what I'm known to do. Sometimes I run other carnival attractions in the Midway.
Must be nice.
Occasionally. It means I get to meet a lot of interesting people. Not
Do you
quite
think
as
I'm-
interesting as you.
Oh, really? What did I do to get you so distracted from your work? Noodle goes in.
You're talking a lot about feelings for Fire Nation men don't speak very much about feelings. It is considered uncouth.
Is that a problem?
I like a man who understands how he feels. How do you feel right now?
Yeong-Soo reaches across the table and like grips one of her hands in his. Quite fierce. Not fiercely, but firmly. I feel like we need to go somewhere a bit more private.
Have you ever been bench pressed before?
Can't say that I have.
Come with me.
Almost.
Takes. So she stands up,
Okay.
throws a couple of coins on the table, and starts walking out away from the city state. And then as she does, she lifts up Yeong-Soo and
Oh!
carries him in a cradle grip. This is what you wanted, yes? Different when it's held by not your friend back there.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be sort of a little embarrassing for him. This is
Just crushes
Oh!
into her chest
Oh!
as he continues to walk.
I presume is also still here, and I just want to point out.
Husband crushed it.
To death. Oh God, the spirit. Can spirits be crushed? Oh boy. I made sure to mention what is on the way. I want to make sure.
It's alright, as long as he waits outside.
Okay. I hope I don't lose him again.
You're not losing anything today except perhaps the last part of your innocence you wanted to get rid of.
You do this a lot?
No. Do you?
Definitely not.
Excellent. But I do think I can bench press you.
I'd like to see you try.
You'll feel me try.
Oh. Oh. I mean,
Ow.
I don't have much more to say, John. I would
Alright.
I would call this a fade to black here.
Alright.
That's what I would call it.
Right. Flameo, Hotman.
Flameo. Flame to tussle.
Ding.
I'm going to point out a couple of
Clap,
things.
clap,
First,
clap.
she never told you her name.
Correct.
You never told her yours.
It's true.
She doesn't ask.
I don't tell.
All right, well, glad we had this talk.
So I just wrote Coral Urchin Noodle Shop, fade to black. That's what I wrote.
Incredible.
Ludicrous.
I would like to propose that this episode be called Hot Ones.
I would like to buy a vowel.
Yeah, hell yeah. How about an oh? Okay, there we go. I will write that down, Elizabeth. and
Yeah.
make a proposal.
I have a few options here, but Hot Ones is
You have
currently
a
my top.
few.
Yeah. Incredible.
You might have missed it, Liz, but I was saying that if we ever do something where we need to end an event, I would totally do the Hot Ones challenge.
Oh my god, you would?
Yeah, I would.
We would need to get all of the hot sauces.
Yep.
Okay.
Which then somebody would need to keep because
How do you feel about
Yeah.
Hot Ones plant-based edition?
yeah. I saw someone do a cauliflower
Would
pie.
make a difference.
Oh, we could totally use yuba. The tofu
Mm-hmm.
skins, wrap it around, make an imitation drumstick. The music just got really emotional when we were talking about drumsticks, so
I'm being used as a drumstick right now. Bang bang. I'm gonna stop talking.
I am so honored and happy actually to be given this incredible responsibility. That doesn't mean I'm not scared. Scared that I won't live up to the human world and the spirit's world's expectations. But mostly it's just that when we find the library, that is the moment where my life stops being up here and starts being down there.
So when is it that you'll be comfortable finding such a place?
I have to push past that. I don't think I'll ever be comfortable. I think that's okay.
Is that how you truly feel?
It might be part of the reason why I'm dragging my feet, but I do believe that finding the library is important. And I do want it found. And I will ask the Order if they'll let me go and look for it.
It's not important enough to you personally, it's about the
No,
order.
it's very important to me personally. If they had their way, they would wait until the library revealed itself, and I've realized we can't wait that long.
Well, it would appear to me that you have a lot to learn.
I mean, I know that, but
Something that's so important to you that you can't reach out and take it for yourself. You have to wait for someone to give you permission. Do you not have the ability to move in this world as you see fit?
well,
Are you so bound? You said that you were grounded, but I did not realize you were trapped.
you operate within a temple. Don't you answer to powers beyond your own?
It's
To
just
callings
Mason
beyond
here.
your own?
Only Mason.
Well, we have an establishment, and one that I love and that has raised me and that I owe a great deal to, but also that I believe in.
I think that it is a very good thing for you to have a community. And at the same time, I don't want it to be holding you back. You're a Sheikah. And a Sheikah must find. If you are not willing to go and find that library on your own, perhaps whatever young, handsome fox found you was wrong. You are being called out to live up to your principle of freedom. Now, you may deny this by rolling with that principle, and on a hit, you have to act as they say or mark a fatigue, and on a 10+, the words will hit hard. But on a miss, you can stand strong by clearing a condition, clearing a fatigue, or shifting your balance, your choice.
And if I decide to allow myself to be called out?
Then you have to basically act in accordance to what he has asked you to do, which means that then you would have to start at least taking steps to find the library, whether your order allows it or not.
I'd like to accept it. It's like you're in my head. It's hard to identify the last time I woke up and didn't wonder if maybe those fox spirits had made a mistake.
Wan Shitong is not known to be tolerant of us anymore.
No.
And yet, you are a Sheikah. There's so much information that we could have access to if you manage to find this place. But it's more than information, isn't it?
Of course.
It is the goal.
It's another bridge between our world and the spirit world. And it's a bridge that's built on knowledge and tradition and the building blocks that we could use to go forward, learning from mistakes that have been made in the past. You can't erase the past. You need to take it into account, but you can't be buried in it either, like this library has been buried so many years.
Do you want to find the library?
I do.
Then I can help you.
What?
Scott.
Yeah. Could she bench press me? An important question for me to ask.
Yes, she absolutely can bench press you.
Nice. All right. Cool. Good.
Afterwards, on a bed that is definitely reinforced,
Incredible.
it is good to feel alive, no?
Yeah, sure is.
Your story, it resonates. I too have no longer access to where I once was.
You're home.
Indeed.
What happened to it?
Oh, when I was a little girl, it was taken from me. My home. Taken from all of us. Originally, it started out as a simple harbor, an upgrade. We were told that we would become a trade center for the nation, that it would become a place where it would only bring prosperity to our nation and to our city. our town, we were told it would become a city. No. Instead, it merely entered smuggling into our little town. For while they established the harbor, they did not establish the security needed in order to make it a convenient place. The village became known as a hotbed of sin, vice. It was demolished 5 years later. It was easier to simply remove the city, move people elsewhere, instead of trying to solve the problem. It now exists as a military base, but just an outpost. I've been here ever since.
Sorry. That's really hard.
Difficult, yes. I remember being very happy.
If you had a chance, if you had a choice, would you go back? Would you try to change it yourself? Make it so that it wasn't taken from you?
I am strong. As you know.
Yeah, I do.
I am strong, but I am not that strong. I, in fact, even have information about how to solve it, but I realize there is nothing left I can do. I cannot save a village that is no longer there. It is destroyed.
What if you could visit vengeance on those who were responsible?
Vengeance?
Yeah, the ones who took from you. What if you could visit?
Do I exact vengeance on the criminals who started infesting the village? Do I extract vengeance from the ships which did not accurately protect its shipments? Do I exact vengeance on the bureaucrat who decided that this would be a perfect place to become a harbor but yet not support it?
Yes, all of them.
All I have is the bureaucrat.
What do you mean?
She's a nasty person. Ended up trying to make big waves here in Fire Nation. When it didn't work out, still had enough clout to go United Republic of Nations, some kind of council bullshit.
Yeong-Soo sits up and then like rolls.
What, you're interested for round two? I could go round two.
He places a hand like on her, I guess, collarbone.
On her
Hmm?
collarbone.
Whoa! I'm What do you know about her? You tell me. I'll be very interested in a round two. There is a lot of intensity behind the eyes.
Jesus.
This is kind of hot, no?
Tell me what you know.
Now, I do have to ask before I say anything.
Sure.
Did you tell her about who destroyed your village? Did you mention her by name?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I feel like when Yeong-Soo is telling people, strangers, he feels like there's a lot of, he feels vindicated, not vindicated, Andong's destruction was personal, and he feels guilt around it, and he feels that it's unfair, but he wouldn't be like, and that councilwoman Takada, you know what I mean? So no.
She has been attempting to increase her status for a long time, trying to impress a man who she desperately wanted to marry. But she was low-born, could not do it. In Fire Nation, being low-born is not impossible, but difficult to rise out, much the same as Earth Kingdom, or for that matter anywhere. When she became councilwoman, finally agreed to marry her, but I know why it didn't happen. He died. But that's not quite all the story. He did not just die.
What happened to him?
Have you ever seen a man with no face?
No. That's horrible. How do you...
It's not a very pleasant way to go.
Yeong-Soo is like, he gets it. Like, he gets it. He sort of sees the image and
Oh,
then...
he can get it.
Oh, hey, get out of my head. Or get in there. Whatever. Consent. There's a click in his mind as he thinks of, like, no face. How... There's only one thing I know in this world that can take faces.
Yes. And it would seem that this has been no small effect. But she's never told anyone. The only reason I know is because my father was the one who took him in when he lost his face. Buried him. He was Undertaker.
Of course. Father is a good man to do that.
My father's dead.
Was. Sorry.
You're not. You're alive.
And
Warm.
very.
Soft in only the right places.
About to get a lot warmer.
And a lot harder.
And a lot harder. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Let's see.
You've made me very happy today.
Let's see how long you can breathe with my thighs wrapped around your neck.
Is there a space on my character sheet for kinks that I can unlock? Is that because I have a section here called fighting technique?
I think it's just under the techniques column.
a technique.
There's a little bit of space right here.
Would this be a defend and maneuver?
Evade and observe. It's definitely not
Evade
an
and
observe.
observe.
I think you're going to have both status favored and trapped.
I'm doomed.
Question.
Yes.
As Yeong-Soo enthusiastically consents to seeing how long he can survive with her thighs wrapped around.
Get down there.
I seem to recall that Dawn's move from her playbook allows me to heal a fatigue if I interact with things that were pointed out.
Oh, it's true.
by
Does
her
this-
move. Does this
I
count
did
as
point out midway as
interacting
a
with,
pastime.
Yes, it does. You want to mark it's mark growth and fatigue, or is it
It is clear one fatigue or mark growth.
so you can clear a fatigue or you can mark growth?
I'm gonna clear fatigue. I have thoughts about growth.
You have not enough growth? You're not going to participate in making sure the rest of why am I talking like that?
I don't know.
It's
I'm not.
total.
Maybe she was gonna continue.
You're not going to mark growth. You're going to just clear fatigue. You probably will get a chance to sleep.
Okay.
I'm going to point out. I mean, unless you think that you're going to need the
No,
fatigue
no. This is.
away.
You know what? Actually, here's how I'm gonna not justify it, but I'm feeling like this moment is very important for Yeong-Soo because it gives him a clear line to Takata. So let's take the growth here. You know who else is taking the growth?
We know.
Where is my I'm not going to apologize for that joke. Oh no, it's still there. Shoot.
What do you need?
Round two.
Fight!
Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
I haven't been to the library, obviously. It's impossible for me to get there. I'm not a seeker, but I can tell you how to find the path. It is about light.
Light.
You are an earthbender, which means that you can still sense the ways that you are supposed to move. You can react. There's an earthbending master who I once worked with. I believe that he lives in Republic City now.
How have I never heard of this person?
He's recalcitrant. And he's in prison.
Ah, that would
Oh,
feels like one you gotta lead with, actually.
I see. I wonder if there's any chance of my visiting him.
It's possible. You need to ask about the Hot Rocks Triad.
Oh? And their name?
I don't know his name.
Oh, okay.
Chu?
And his tunes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, wait.
He was, I think, the leader of the Hot Rocks.
No.
Or he was just a dude, I can't remember.
No, the leader of the Hot Rocks Triad, very specifically, was a Water Nation,
Oh, yeah.
if I remember
The
correctly.
Chew came by with his tunes, I remember.
Right, but he's in jail as well?
Yeah, you put him in jail.
Well,
That
we
was
put
like
him
your
all,
first-
put him all away,
confession.
baby.
Yeah, but it wasn't the prologue person that was
No.
in jail. Okay, we put a few members of the jail. I was trying to say. So it was Chun, right?
Chu.
Oh, Chu? C-H-U?
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, wow.
I know that he is capable of teaching how to sense the environment, to understand who is acting where and how. He owes me a favor.
I couldn't ask you to call in this favor for me.
It's not a very large favor. It's only going to be enough to have him hear you out. But what you need once you're on the path in the spirit world is light. You are going to need to sense how the world reacts to light. Knowledge is illumination, which means that the path to the library depends on how the spirit world itself will react to a very special life. A light that brings life.
A light that brings life.
That's all I know.
This is more than I ever could have hoped for when I climbed these steps.
You thought you were just about to sit and try to steal some of my limino.
I
remember the name of my...
I owned it.
Fuck you!
Oh, God.
I was looking for comfort and familiarity, and you pushed me beyond the life I thought I knew. And I will be forever grateful for that.
Just tell him that Maison's speaking highly for you.
That means a great deal. I know one of your students,
Oh?
General Jai. I should have told you earlier.
Jai. Yes, Jai. And
That's it. He still practices. The patterns he's trying.
he never mastered them,
Still trying.
and he never will.
What? How could you say that?
He's too rigid. He's somebody who's bound to his army, to his nation, to his masters.
Oh, you're in my head again. But I was frustrated by that too. And then I felt like the biggest hypocrite in the world. He
broke my heart.
call wait.
Maids and wait.
Maids and wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause you pain.
It's not pain. But at the same time, understand, he had a promise. And he turned his back on progress in order to look at what he needed to accomplish for his what? A nation still divided, still recovering from its brutal past? How could anybody support that? This nation needs to be burned to the ground and then reformed. Let its people decide how we are to move forward by shedding our past.
I can see how that may have been cause for conflict.
A forest fire is one of the best things that can happen, because it is a way to clear out the dead branches and the old and feeble, so that new life can spring up. Without forest fires, a forest eventually withers away and dies entirely. One sometimes needs to discard that which no longer has use in order to move forward. And he can't. He's holding back. His army might not be attacking the Earth Kingdom now, but it will attack something, somewhere, sometime. Whatever reasons he has for it, it's still an army. There's still firebenders who are ready to destroy for no other reason other than to serve a lord.
She takes his hand, kind of just a quick. I don't have the right words.
Loved him, but he loved his nation more.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for seeing me today. It means more than you could possibly know.
Don't forget, only light and only darkness only gives you a part of the picture. But if you control the light, you control what others see. The trick is to find the right amount of light and darkness to see the truth. And when you have that, you'll find the knowledge you seek. The right kind of illumination.
I'll remember. Please. I should get back.
If you've learned anything today, I've done my job.
I have.
And thank you.
Thank you. Be well.
And you.
She somewhat reluctantly steps out of the temple.
When you open the door, the light is almost blinding. Outside. Although it's, the sun is not entirely high in the sky. It's getting on.
Symbolism. Oh, I thought you were doing it on purpose.
After I was.
Oh, good.
After you leave, the shutters slam back open again in order to spill light in the temple. I'm going to make sure that it's not going to make that noise.
Yeah. I like to think that you hear a small oh God, my eyes from inside. My old withered eyes. He's fine. Mason's fine, not withered. Incredible.
My eyes, the goggles do nothing.
Do nothing. My special eyes.
When you step out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been a little bit of time, but Yeong-Soo is no longer in the midway.
She immediately gets worried.
He's around.
She doesn't know that.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
But you do find Jai.
So Don, clearly very deep in thought, doesn't necessarily notice right away.
Done.
Hi.
Hello? Are you alright? You look like you've seen a ghost.
I was just getting out of the sunlight for a moment. Can we talk?
We can. Where do you want to go?
Your favorite place.
Might be right here. Come, let's see if you can win a prize.
Okay. Okay.
Takes you to a you ever see that game where everybody, there's several different water pistols and they all have to fire into a specific place, and if they fill a container or whatever, the little thing rises up to the top, and if they get to the top, then they've won.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Step right up, ladies and gentlemen, and let's see whether you have the right to win a prize. Once we get 4 competitors here, we'll see whether you can get this nozzle to fill this plate with water. Why do I sound like the announcer at the beginning of the show?
We love him. See, he's got to have other gigs.
Will Don be able to fill this thing? Will...
Will Yeong-Soo's hole get filled again?
Oh,
my
God. Oh.
Again. Take
That's
3.
what happens behind closed doors.
It's true. Are you challenging me? General.
We can talk here. He hands a tiny little. I mean, it's the thing is, it's worked with a just basically a bellows, right? It's pretty primitive, but it still works. There's no one else there, and he goes, pay double and I'll get you a prize. Well, I mean, look, there's only 2 of them. One of them's gonna win.
It's true.
But I need 4 competitors, and I don't have 4. If you want to go ahead, you're just gonna have to. And Jai's like, it's fine. Here, just.
Please.
But you have to go work the bellows. Well, yeah, I have to, of course. How am I? Just And as he goes and he starts pushing on the bellows, you see like it takes a certain amount of work for him to do it, so he's no longer paying attention to what you're saying. He picks up the little water pistol. It's always seemed a lot larger.
You came here as a kid?
Yeah. Every once in a while, when I could afford it. The time is...
That must have been difficult while you were growing up. Seeing a city full of exciting things that you couldn't explore because you had other responsibilities.
You know, a long time ago I thought that it was because my family insisted, saying that I was growing up, that I had a responsibility, that I needed to do better. But I realized that I was pushing myself. No one asked me to volunteer at the post office. No one told me I had to be part of the military. I did it myself. Well, lady, are you gonna squirt or what?
Jesus, Sky Bison.
What? You're not even here.
I'm not even here. I'm not
Don't
even...
shake your head at me.
How dare you?
Oh, God.
You know what? This is weird. I'm gonna go sleep with that carny again.
You know, you didn't have to make it weird until you just made it a...
Your NPC chose this booth. God damn it. For once, this wasn't my fault.
Yes, but I thought it was a constant stream, not so much of a...
Squirting action, yeah.
So she's doing this, but trying to focus on the serious conversation at hand.
Jai's not very good at this. He can fire the pistol, but he tends to squeeze the trigger a bit too hard so that it'll shoot out faster, but that makes it harder to aim. So it's going off center.
Mm-hmm.
What?
No, that's tough for him. It's a precision thing, right? Like, I don't know. There's a nice metaphor to it. I don't know.
His death grip. His water pistol. It's too hard, but he can't.
And gets off center.
Look,
Oh no!
I don't know. I don't make the rules, okay?
She's gonna reach across and try to, like, steady his hand.
Oh, that's nice.
It could be. Isn't it?
Good.
I wasn't hurt because you didn't come with us, by the way. I was hurt because it didn't seem to hurt you to say goodbye. I'm used to goodbyes. More used to them than I'd like to admit. Goodbyes are fine. It's the lack of them that hurts. I mean, of course you were gonna go off and do your thing. You were the general. Of course you were gonna go back to the Fire Nation But it didn't seem to cost you anything, and that was just...
In the spirit realm, when you're leading your expeditions, there is a certain amount of danger, is there not?
Yeah.
And assuming that something happens that's dangerous, I assume that people look to you in order to make sure that there isn't a panic.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do in that situation?
I would make sure that everybody stayed together, and I would guide them calmly to the nearest exit.
You weren't the only one looking at me. I had an entire ship, an entire complement of people looking to a leader.
You linked arms with me. No embarrassment the day before.
That is not an embarrassment, but that was before an embassy was destroyed.
You could have asked for a moment.
Or was it? No, wait.
No, it wasn't.
Hold on. Let's see.
It was after she went to get him to talk
That
to the
was-
Kyoshi Warriors inquest, yeah.
That.
We walked through town square. You didn't seem to mind.
You were asking me to abandon my post.
I told you, the fact that you stayed was not what hurt me.
I see. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just started feeling like I was the one who asked you on a date. I was the one who said I wanted to kiss you. I was the one who asked you to stay. I was starting to feel like an imposition, and like you came to pick us up from the blank because you were ordered to. Because you were, and you brought us here because you were ordered to, and that is very admirable. I just... If this is going any further, I want it to be because you want to.
I offered to bring you on a tour, didn't I?
It's really hard to tell if that was something you wanted to do or if you were being polite. You're very stoic.
That's not fair.
I'm saying it was difficult to tell.
There are a lot of things that I have done. It's not fair to claim that I'm not serious about something simply because you can't tell.
It's not that. You're serious about everything.
Yes.
So it's hard to tell what decisions are coming from your heart and what decisions are coming from you just very seriously determining that it's the right thing to do.
What if that is from my heart?
Then I would be the one who's sorry.
Why?
For
That I have a serious heart?
for not giving you a chance to express that fully. I do wish you'd said this to me days earlier, weeks earlier. That whole awkward summer shark trip could have been avoided.
Probably.
I just wanted to know that we were something that you wanted. And that's beyond it being long-term or anything. I'm not expecting anything like that.
I understand. I... Oh, you still...
I mean,
you went back to it?
Oh,
Okay.
I think she's doing it the whole time. whether she was looking or not. Oh, God.
It looks like you've managed to take out the clown. And, like, the little ball has risen to the point where it's touched the clown's face. Yeah. And a prize for the lady. And he reaches up and he pulls down. It is a tiny little doll of the Fire Lord.
Oh, sweet.
Now,
Is it current Fire Lord, like Fire Lord Azumi?
yes,
Oh
it
my
is
God.
the current Fire Lord. It is
Imagine.
Fire Lord
Incredible.
Izumi.
Fire Lord Ozai, and it has like a it says things when you pull the area. Never mind.
Kill the Avatar.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate my son.
You were disappointed, Zuko.
Go storming into my war room. Okay, sorry. No.
Oh.
Get out of my sight if you know what's good for you.
Oh, wow. These are really lifelike. Hey.
Yeah.
Also, I'm gonna point this out just because Fire Lord Izumi kind of get it.
Oh, she.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Like, I only wish we'd seen more of her in Korra.
Yeah, same.
She seems
We
awesome.
barely saw her at all.
Yeah. Once.
So that's me. I'm saying my piece.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
welcome.
So what does this mean? No, it doesn't mean that you have to take the lead again. I want to know how you feel.
No, I want to know what you want. I've made the first moves. That's it. I've got my prize. I'm heading off to get some food.
I'll come with you. And then I'll show you where I grew up.
She steps back.
Come on.
Really?
As long as it's not going to weird you out too much to see my childhood bedroom.
Can I leave this there? Would that be allowed?
I think so. So the doll is just like a little thing. It's got little like horn rimmed glasses.
Oh my god, amazing.
The Fire Lord's like,
Yep. Yeah. You're a piece.
yeah, the one that was worn by Roku and then later on Zuko, and then later on his dog Zumi. Now, after round 2,
Ugh. Ugh. Ugh.
so you're happy.
Yeah. Are you?
This is good. I like making people happy. I don't normally get the chance to do it like this.
Right.
You do know that I have a foot pedal, yes?
No, I didn't know that. What?
The High Striker. If a small child comes along and wants
Oh.
to try, I can help out a little.
Oh.
But when it comes to bats, I stay clear. I don't want that kind of heat, especially not from Fire Nation General.
Mm-mm.
You keep important company.
Apparently so. A friend of a friend.
Why were you so excited to hear about my my little secrets?
That bureaucrat, that woman,
Yes.
that councilwoman. She sits on the Republic City Council now.
Yes, she does.
I vowed to take everything from her.
Oh.
Her power, her position,
Her
everything.
life?
If it comes to it.
Well, it's either everything or it isn't.
She can keep her life if she understands what she's done to me, to you, and to the people of this world.
It sounds like mercy.
I'm not above mercy.
And yet, what is it that you would normally choose to do?
I've been keeping company lately with people who have made me reconsider whether what this woman actually needs is to be completely destroyed or not. I've been thinking whether it might be better to show her the error of her ways and to give her a chance to make things right again. I don't know.
I'm very strong. So are you. But one thing I can tell you is that to be strong, it takes a lot of work, but it also takes a village. I had to eat, I had to get enough sleep. I had to get help when I was injured. All of these things. And I had that village taken away from me. When you meet this woman, when you take everything from her, Do not forget what you said about mercy. Yes?
I won't.
It is with mercy that you can keep a village alive. A lack of mercy might mean more villages will go. Others will take up our cause.
I can't have that. She's the one that I'm angry at. But I see it now. It's not her. It's what she stands for. It's what she represents.
Yes.
And I can't have that spread.
No. You can't.
You understand.
I do.
You don't know how happy you've made me. You've given me a lead. You've given me something I can work with.
Show me. Show me how happy you've made me.
Yeong-Soo takes his 3-section staff
Yes.
and unscrews it a little bit
Yes.
and cracks it against the floor.
What?
Then he hands it to her. And he presents his back.
Oh.
Now I want to actually, you know what? Sorry, I've been doing this. I'm gonna pull a yellow card here. I just want to. I'm feeling safe. I'm letting people at the table know the intention here is playful, consensual, like BDSM. between
Three-section
two people.
stuff.
I think that's
To
pretty
be clear,
I
yeah,
think it's pretty clear.
as opposed to like punish me. You know. Thank you.
I mean, I think there might be a little bit of
Oh,
like,
sure.
role playing along the lines of like, oh, I've been
so naughty.
so dirty from the earth, just covered in dirt.
I'm just a farmer.
The farmer. Farmer who lost his hoe.
What a role play. Oh, Nickelodeon, if you're watching.
I haven't had a chance to spread my seed in a long
Oh
time.
no. Anyway, I've lost my hoe. Can you help me find one?
I'm going to point out that I did
Oh.
shift your balance one more towards care, and yours has gone one more towards freedom.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm at. Ooh, boy. Okay. Okay. That's a lot of care.
Jai's home has no one in it. It's been well maintained. It seems that he has a home here, but he is very rarely there. His joke about a childhood bedroom, it's the guest room now. He's since moved into the master's suite, but the guest room still has the occasional sign of a young man growing up.
Sure.
There's a couple of old medals hanging on the wall. There's a few drawings of hawks, including one that has a not like an anatomical drawing, but definitely more like here are some places where a hawk might be injured and what you can do for it. And
Oh god.
That's so cute.
Don beelines towards those.
I couldn't bear to get rid of them.
I'm really glad. I didn't want to imagine that everything you wanted was only ever going to be seen during a game of I want.
Everything I want is right here, at least right now.
I love this room.
And spend some time with me here.
She reaches out and grabs him by the collar,
Okay.
pulls him in
Mhm.
for a kiss that starts tenderly and swiftly builds, if he allows.
It's a smaller bed, which does mean there isn't a whole lot of room to go somewhere else other than be very close. It's more intimate than on the mountain. Not that the mountain wasn't intimate, but mountain you had.
The hills are alive. I was thinking that, yeah. The sound of fucking. All right, very good.
Well, you know.
gonna get Nickelodeon on the horn. We have ideas.
I don't
for them.
think they want to hear what we have to say.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It is a wonderful thing to be able to let some steam off, to be able to learn about your future goals. And I appreciate that you've both taken the opportunities to do so today. The Midway stays open late into the night. Like late into the evening. At night, it definitely closes
Right,
down.
okay.
But it's still a popular place for some people to go, because it's so close to the fountain, and the fountain does give off enough light even throughout the night. The bouquet of flowers that Kai Ming has bought does droop a little bit as she sits in the Midway, waiting. But I think we'll end the session there.
Sure hope she bought those for Bao. Right? Right, Liz?
That's right.
Right? Sure hope so. That'd be real convenient. Oh. Yay!
Yay!
Hot ones is staying at the top.
Yeah, I think Hot Ones is good. I also have Limono No and Meet Me at Midway. MEAT.
Meet me at
Duck
Midway.
Duck Goose. Rap Party. WRAP.
Duck Duck Goose. I like Rap Party as well. I'm gonna write that.
So those are both.
Duck Duck Goose. Duck 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 Goose.
Elizabeth, did you learn something? What did you learn?
Oh, good
this
grief.
time around?
I learned who Jai's ex-mentor was.
Fair.
Ah, that was very exciting.
Scott?
I learned that Councilwoman Takata was due to marry someone who then had his face taken. Terrifying stuff.
Did you stop a dangerous threat or solve a community problem?
No.
Did you guide a companion towards balance or end the session at your center?
No.
No.
We'll say that you get 2 for your question. But then I do have to ask, do you want to, Elizabeth, do you want to take 1 fatigue away, or do you want to mark growth for interacting with the Midway?
I will mark growth.
Yay!
Hooray!
So you will advance, but I will ask, did you accomplish a deed worthy of your position?
So, actually not, I would say. Because according to the order, she has not. Or according to her, she has.
But according to your position, not the order.
Because it just says, like, your burdens and traditions.
How would you describe? Talk me through it.
Like, it depends if we count actively finding the library as being something that falls under the order's purview.
Yeah. You accomplish a feat worthy of your burden and tradition.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's
That's
interesting
it.
phrasing, actually. Yeah. Worthy of your burden. and tradition.
I think that this is worthy of your burden and traditions.
Yeah. Cool.
Making that decision, I guess.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Because the one thing is that if it was just to do things that your order would like, then you would only ever be pushed towards your role.
Oh, true.
Your duty, as opposed
That's
to freedom.
true.
And I don't think that that's the intention. So yes, I think that you did.
Also, if I can just jump in really quickly, I think it's really cool to think that the order is kind of like, well, you know, when Wan Chitong wants to give the library back,
That's it.
And now you have the tools in hand to actually maybe do something.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is
It's
cool.
very exciting.
Scott.
Did I make progress towards my goal against my adversary? Yes. Strong yes. I have an actionable lead. Now, that man is dead. But we'll figure something out.
We just have to dig him up.
Oh,
We've dug up corpses before, and
and
they
we'll
haven't-
do it again.
There you go.
Yay!
To advance. We'll make sure
Huzzah.
that Kate knows that Bao also gets to advance,
Excellent.
because you earn this for everyone, even if they aren't present. At
Kate,
the
if
session.
if you're listening in the future, you get to advance.
Hooray!
Elizabeth, do you want to call out something of Scott's? You can't call out Kate at the moment.
Oh.
I loved. Oh my god, I don't know how to choose. So I'm going to say I'm going to start with Yeong-Soo challenging Jai to the mallet.
Yeah.
Because first of all, what he proposed as the terms, and then the fact that that introduced this incredible NPC.
Yeah.
And all of the Takata info that came from it is all because of your proposition in that moment. So
Good old little respect.
Amazing.
Just a little respect.
it was
Just a little
great.
bit.
So good.
Incredible. Thank you. I really liked, and there were a lot of great moments for Don as well. But I want to highlight Liz's play today. Being able to, what was the specific moment here? It was being called out towards freedom, and not repelling it, because in that moment Don is actively choosing freedom. I just thought it was a really nice roleplay moment that tied in really well with the journey that Dawn is on. And then I think it's going to be interesting to see if she swings back the other way to be like, I can't just abandon my role. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very cool.
I want to highlight the two primary NPCs that were introduced this session for
Mason
Dawn.
and Strongal.
And Throngel.
Strongal, is that what we're going for?
Well,
It's
quotation marks for now.
Could worse.
It they were just so cool because it felt completely organic how they were present.
Yeah.
But and it wasn't, the twists about them weren't revealed until we asked the right questions or we got to know them better. Because it could have just been Don sitting next to Mason and going can I just sit quietly beside you? And he'd be like, okay. And that would have been
You
it.
can sit quietly beside me. Don't drink my limono.
Also, I know about Wonchi Tom's
Yeah, that's
lantern.
it. And you could have done the game and then left.
Yeah, sure.
So it was just really, really great that there were these hidden components to these characters.
Really cool. Really cool.
Yee.
Yee.
What do we have to look forward to this week?
Always have a week full of delicious, delightful, delectable streams in the community. I stream on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can find me at twitch.tv/BiffTheBouse. It is a continuation of A Case of the Tuesdays. We're playing Shadows of Doubt right now, which is a procedurally generated film noir crime game, which I love. Biff! That's right, Pook. Hi, Pook.
Biff.
Biff! Which I'm really jazzed about. I don't actually know how to solve the things yet, but we're figuring it out as we go. I'm spending a lot of time in diners. I was hoping to get another stream out this week, like a bonus, but I'm not actually sure when because we have a lot of other things going on in the city. So we'll see. I'm hoping to hold myself to it.
On Wednesday, I am hoping to come back with another stream. I streamed last week. I streamed Mario 2 Japan, which, oh god, that game's hard as
Mario 2
fuck.
Japan.
Yeah, it's the Lost Levels. If you know those. It's,
yeah.
It's hard as
That sounds awful.
fucking balls.
I don't like that at all.
So we'll see if I come back to that. Otherwise, maybe I'll play something different. I don't know. I'm now in the end game in Diablo, and by end game I mean not the end game yet. But the campaign is done, which is good because that's not what I wanted to play it for. So we'll see. But hopefully that will be Wednesday.
Friday, we are continuing Punchy.
Yeah. And we must be almost done. I'm just kidding. We had that conversation earlier. Anyway.
At 1800, God of War, Punch a Rock.
It's great, honestly.
And then Saturday, Drew Crew, 1500.
We're finishing.
We are finishing The Mystery of the Brass-Bound Trunk. Or so help me God.
My god. Will the trunk get away with it? Find out. You can join me at 1700. It's 5 p.m. Eastern. Again on Biff the Boss, because I am also finishing my current campaign of Doomed. We'll see how Charlie Kane confronts the rest of the coterie and whether he will be murdered or whatever. I don't know. Something horrible probably will happen.
Also, on Sunday at noon is Punchy Book Club. We are finishing Mercy, the
Wow.
Fair Lady, the Frost, and the Fiend, reading the last 2 issues / chapters. So
We're getting
that's
through it
happening.
this
Yep.
weekend.
Yep. And then
Normally this would be Kate saying this, but next Sunday we'll be right here, 1700 Eastern Daylight Time, for episode 16 of the Mirror Scale.
Wow.
I hope to see you there. I hope to go this way, and then that way. See you next time.
Bye. Stronger.
Bye.